Hey all, if you're not caught up to the latest episode, you might not have heard the good news, but our Ghosts of Harrenhal merchandise site is open for the holidays. So if you're looking to get your loved one some Ghosts of Harrenhal merchandise, head to our shop. Or if you're interested in asking your loved ones for some Ghosts of Harrenhal merchandise for yourself, head to ghostsofharrenhal.threadless.com and stock up. All right, on with the show.
Hello, welcome to the Ghosts of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm Mackelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 267 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George Martin. Today we're discussing chapter 41 of A Feast for Crows. That's Alayne too. We have got off on the right foot here, I feel, Mackelly. We're all upbeat and
That's right.
gung-ho.
Well, we've been talking for about 20 minutes ahead of time.
the opportunity to just say what's written down on the page as we go.
So anyway, as always, we're going to chat about the chapter and try not to spoil any future plot points for you, unless, of course, you have a Buy Me a Coffee Sustainer tier that includes spoilers. Then we are going to spoil things for you. Regardless, we'll hopefully provide you some entertainment along the way.
We'll summarise what happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the television show, indulge in a little pedantry, and cover some relevant news and listener correspondence. Be sure to check out the show notes. They'll provide some additional information about the characters and geography of this chapter. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. We're just coming off our Thanksgiving break. I basically took all of last week off from work. And
good for you.
I'd like to report that I'm relaxed and refreshed and ready to go, but
taking that's a no.
In some ways, having 9 people and 2 dogs in the house for a week is, relaxing. It is not. I will say that. But yes, we weren't expecting. We were expecting the people. We weren't expecting the extra dog. Our Stacy's sister's family has a diabetic dog, and they had it scheduled to be kenneled, but the morning of their departure, as I understand it, the kennel called and said, we've decided we don't want to do the shots for the dog. So they had to retrieve the dog, and the dog made the trip down to us. Wow.
That's a little bit unfair. I get not necessarily wanting to have a diabetic dog in the kennel, but announce that at the time it was booked.
Right. Yes. not the morning of. What if they had left the night before?
Oh God.
We're gonna put the dog outside. We'll throw a bowl out there. But the dog was fine. He's a good dog. Unfortunately, though, as you know, my dog is not the best of hosts. She does not play well with other dogs. Cats, she loves cats.
Yeah.
Dogs, not so much. So Penny was not happy. She followed him around and growled and snarled and made sneak attacks every opportunity she got.
She's a funny dog, Penny. She really is.
She's something. When she's by herself, she's fairly much an angel, except for at bedtime. You don't want to touch her at bedtime.
Well, there's bedtime, and there's also like stroking her in a way she doesn't like, right?
Yes. Well, yes. Picking her up in ways that she doesn't like. There are some triggers. You're right.
There's quite a lot of triggers. It's like a jester's costume, and a bell goes off every time you move.
Yeah. But if her world is perfect, she's a very sweet, manageable dog. We'll go with that. Anyway, enough about me. How was your break? How are you doing?
Yeah, I didn't have such a long break, but it was nice. We saw family on Thanksgiving, and we had a really nice time. And it was also Lucas's birthday on Thanksgiving Day.
Oh yes, happy birthday to Lucas!
And it was a big one. It was he is allowed to drink now.
Wow,
crazy times.
It is. I just saw a picture up in my attic. I was looking for something, and I came across the picture of Ethan and Lucas when Lucas was 2 and Ethan was 4.
Drinking. Yes, I remember that photograph. Yeah, they were drinking like juice boxes or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Actually, I have a juice box story myself from this week.
Wow. Yeah, that is.
So you have to remind me about the juice box because that's not the main part of the story. But I gave blood. I gave blood yesterday.
Good for you.
Now, this is not. Yeah, I mean, fishing for praise, obviously, like I always am, but it's noteworthy because for a long time the United States wouldn't take my blood because of mad cow disease, but now they will.
Okay.
And this was my first opportunity. Well, this is my second opportunity, but the first time I had poison ivy on the injection site, and the nurse would not go anywhere near my arm, so I was rebuffed.
Yeah, understandable on her part. Wait,
but
would they not take your blood because you weren't an American citizen yet?
No,
and now
because
that you
because I lived in the United Kingdom in 1989. That
right.
was the rule.
I get why they didn't before, but now they do. Is it because all of a sudden you're American citizen?
No, because they feel like the gestation period for Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease has now expired. So
okay.
I either don't have it or I'm already dead. So either way, they can take my blood.
Okay. Is it just a coincidence that in that time you have become an American
I did become an American citizen? That is pure coincidence. I actually saw a British guy while I was giving blood, and I was like, "Hey, were you banned?" He said, "Yeah, I was banned too." So, but I did a thing called Power Red. I don't know if you've given blood recently. I don't know if you're a kind of guy who does selfless things for other people like me, Mackelly. I'm joking. But Power Red, they take your blood out and then they centrifuge it and they keep the red blood cells and they put the rest back in you.
Okay. I'm not familiar with that.
So they call it Power Red. Apparently it's 3 times as useful as just giving a pint of blood.
Really?
And in some respects, it's less invasive to me because I get most of my blood back.
Yeah, not as weak and all that, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit weaker than it was, but yeah, I mean, I get it back.
I mean, but you're not as weak, like physically, because you get the blood back.
I didn't lose all that liquid, yeah. But I played soccer this morning and I felt tired, so I wonder if it does have an effect because you're missing the red blood cells, which are the ones that transport the oxygen. You know,
right? So. Yes, sure.
But the thing that I found fascinating about the whole thing was I could see the bags filling up with blood.
That's the part that gets me. I don't like that.
Well, do it this way then, because I could only see the bag that wasn't the red bag. Now, I assumed that this liquid would be sort of a watery pink colour. A pink colour and watery is what I expected.
Right.
But this stuff exactly looked like Bud Light. It was yellow with like a slightly white foamy head.
What? How much have you been drinking lately?
I said that kind of tracks. but it kind of looked like urine. I mean, it looked like pee. Basically.
What kind of liquid did they take? They took the wrong stuff.
I know, it was weird. I was like, I'm not sure I want you to put that back in, to be honest. You know,
right?
But it was an interesting experience because you couldn't really feel the blood going out, but when they reversed the process, you could feel the cold going in because it wasn't quite body temperature.
Yeah.
So, and it happens twice. So then, like a whole second phase happened where they took more blood out, took out the red blood cells, and then pumped it back in again. And they say that the reason people don't do it is because it can take a long time. I've heard of it taking us a few hours sometimes, but it only took me half an hour, so it was easy for me.
All right.
But they give snacks.
Okay.
Yeah. And they had juice boxes. And I was like, well, honestly, I'm giving blood. It's carte blanche for what I can eat today. You know, I'm like,
right.
Let's do this. So I thought, I'll have a juice box. And I opened the juice box. Now, I don't know if you're an experienced juice box opener, Mackelly, but they're pretty full.
Yes, they
are.
And
that straw pokes in there. And I squirted juice like all over the table, all over myself. And the other people at the table who were all just, having just given blood a second ago, I was like, it's a good job I don't work here.
You don't want red liquid squirting all over the place if you work there. Yes. Well, you probably needed a 5-year-old to help you since they're probably much more experienced with the...
They know what they're doing.
Yes.
Well, anyway, enough of this frivolity. Let's get down to business. How did we leave Alayne? Last we saw of Alayne, if you don't remember who Alayne is, she's Sansa Stark. Keep it on the down low,
That's
people.
Right.
She was serving the Lords Declarant of the Vale as they came to demand Littlefinger's removal. I mean, all of him, not just the finger. Yeah, it seemed they would be successful in their demands until Lyn Corbray, who was one of them, angered and drew his sword against Littlefinger. This lapse in etiquette is the foothold that Petyr Baelish needed, and the Lords came around, with the exception of Corbray and Randa Royce, both of whom withdrew promptly. That night, Littlefinger revealed that Corbray was paid for his services. At least, that's how we interpreted it.
Yeah, right? I think that's how it went, yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Why don't we give the summary of this one, Mackelly?
All right. Well, Alayne is again called upon to soothe Lord Robert. Winter is coming to the Eyrie, and the residents need to move down the mountain. It's a full day's journey, so Sweet Robin needs to get out of bed and get moving. Alayne is the best hope. Maester Coleman has already had a chamber pot thrown at him. Alayne orders the servants to carry on packing while she talks to the young lord. Lothar Brune wants to drag the boy from his bed, but Alayne knows that this can trigger a fit, and getting down the mountain is going to be hard enough.
She coaxes and cajoles, first the curtains, then the promise of a story of the winged knight when they get to the gates of the moon. Ever the grifter, Robert wants 3 stories. The light reveals the scrawny child, but Alayne says he's looking strong. Mya Stone is waiting for them, but Robert Arryn dismisses her as a mule girl. He's afraid to leave, but Alayne tries to allay his fears. He's scared of heights since his mother died, so it's going to be a long day.
She pulls him from his bed, and he kisses her. Alayne recalls the hound's kiss at the Red Keep. She promises more kisses at the gates of the moon. She invites in the servants and gets things moving. Maester Coleman thanks her for her ability to control him and suggests milk of the poppy, but Alayne says that the Lord cannot arrive at the foot of the mountain tied to a mule like a bag of barleycorn. Alayne is in charge since Littlefinger is at the wedding of Lord Lionel Corbray to a wealthy merchant's daughter. Her dowry more than compensates for her low birth.
Alayne suggests sweet sleep instead to keep him calm, but Maester Coleman is nervous about dosage and the upcoming feast at the gates of the moon. Not a large feast, assures Alayne, and music but no singing. Maester Coleman cares for the boy, but Alayne and her father also care for Robert, the Lord of the Vale. The journey to Skye is quickest by the chain winch. Well, it's the second quickest way. Brune hopes that Robert Arryn hurries. Mya Stone won't risk her mules for them if they're late. Alayne notices that Lothar smiles when he talks of Mya.
Brune tells Alayne that Randa Royce, a.k.a. Randa, is with Mya. Alayne hasn't met Lord Nestor's daughter, but Littlefinger had warned her that she was a shrewd character. Robert will be pleased. He likes Randa. Alayne gets wrapped up for the journey. She knows who Mya Stone's father is, and she looks like her Uncle Renly. Alayne and Robert ride down together. A bump on the way down sees Robert's face in Alayne's chest. She tolerates him. In fact, she's pretty scared herself, so probably distracted by that. Once they arrive, Skye is hardly more than a wall and a cave where the mules live. They meet Randa.
Randa compliments them both while the bucket arrives with additional members of the party. Mya takes charge when she arrives. It's cold and Robert Arryn moans, but they ignore him. Alayne cannot help but be nervous for what lies ahead. In the Eyrie, she was safely tucked away from the world. At the gates of the moon, there will be plenty of eyes, each one with the potential to recognize her as Sansa Stark.
Randa informs Alayne that her father, Petyr Baelish, is returning from the Corbray wedding. It seems Lady Waynwood and Sir Simon Templeton turned up at the ceremony. Alayne is shocked. That's 2 more Lords Declarant who have joined forces with Littlefinger's cause. Randa shares news from outside the Vale as well. The war rages on. Riverrun has fallen, but Dragonstone and Storm's End hold for Stannis. Wait, that doesn't seem right. Anyway, and the Night's Watch has a new boy Lord Commander, a bastard of Ned Stark's.
Jon Snow? Alayne blurts out. Randa confirms. Sansa had not thought of Jon in a long time. He is the only brother she has left. It would be great to see him again. But she reminds herself that Alayne has no brothers. Finally, Randa says that Bronze Randa Royce held a melee for squires. It was a stage set so that Harry the heir would win and be knighted by Jon himself. When Sansa questions, Randa says he's the ward of Lady Waynwood and a bit of a player with the ladies.
Randa goes on about herself, widowed, failed betrothal to Harry, and bedded Marillion. She then launches into Mya's backstory. The girl was in love with Michael Redfort, but the boy's father married him off to a more appropriate woman for a boy of his station. After a tense situation crossing a narrow rock bridge, Mya Stone explains why she's never scared on the mountain. She recalls a man throwing her high in the air as a baby. She wasn't scared because she knew he'd always be there to catch her. But then he wasn't, and that's what men do. They come and they go. However, a mountain is reliable. It never goes anywhere. And a stone is a mountain's daughter, so she trusts her father completely.
The rest of the journey is cold and tiring but uneventful. When they arrive at the gates of the moon, Alayne is shocked to learn that her father is here and would like a word. She finds him sitting with 3 hedge knights. She pecks her father on the cheek and he sends the men away. In private, Littlefinger admonishes Sansa for the lame peck she gave him upon seeing him. He grabs her by the face and kisses her on the mouth for a long time, then tells her to do better next time.
We'll be right back.
Hello, friends. Are you ready to make some unforgettable memories? Well, if so, consider the Marriott Bonvoy program. Discover the perfect destination for your summer getaway and unlock exclusive deals on luxurious accommodations. With our affiliate partnership, you'll enjoy unbeatable savings and a seamless booking experience. Don't let summer slip away. Visit Marriott Bonvoy today and make this vacation season one for the books. Use our Ghosts of Harrenhal affiliate page to check it all out and buy Bonvoy points or give some as a gift. The link to our page is in the show notes. News from King's Landing is that Cersei is ahead of schedule with the disaster she's making of the realm. He fears the little peace and order left by the 5 kings won't survive the 3 queens. All that aside, he's brought Alayne a gift. A marriage contract. Alayne isn't exactly jumping for joy at this news. Besides, she's already married. Never fear, this is simply a betrothal. The wedding must wait until Cersei is dead and Sansa Stark is widowed.
The marriage plans are in place. However, Alayne must woo her prospective husband. Lady Waynwood will not force the boy to wed. Alayne is confused why Lady Waynwood would marry a son to a bastard. First off, the dower is enormous, and secondly, he's not her son. He's her ward, Harold Harding. Alayne recalls Harry the heir. She's confused and asked how he's Lady Waynwood's heir. She has sons.
Littlefinger explains the history of House Arryn, starting with Jon Arryn's father Jasper. When it boils all down to it, Harry isn't Anya Waynwood's heir, he's sweet Robin's heir. Alayne voices that if Robert were to die, Harry would be the Lord of the Eyrie and Defender of the Vale. Littlefinger corrects her. When Robert dies, that will be true. Robert is too sickly. The knights and lords won't rally around him, nor will they rally around Littlefinger. However, they will love their young falcon. And when Sansa Stark with her auburn hair stands beside him, every sword in the Vale will be pledged to win her back Winterfell. That is her present.
Yes. It's a chapter which has a lot of build-up to that payoff. It's a good payoff.
Yes.
There's a lot of chapter. And
it is so long. It was the audiobook chapter was like an hour and 5 minutes. Or something like that. Yeah.
Wow.
I only got through it maybe 3 or maybe 4 times this week. So hopefully I know enough about it to speak to it.
Obviously, I'm not a proponent or, apologist for infanticide. However, the plan to kill Robert Arryn meets with my tacit approval because his whininess just needs to be stopped. Just stop it.
Yeah, I certainly understand the feeling. But, he's been treated like a baby his whole life. In this chapter, we learn that he was never taught to ride a horse. We know for a fact he's been coddled excessively. Every whim indulged, no friends. And, I mean, maybe he just likes to be read to, but it's also possible that at age 8, he still can't read. I'm not sure. I'm not sure which it is, but it's really...
To be fair, a lot of lords can't read. Remember, the maesters make their trade
That's true.
on
That's true.
illiterate lords.
Yes, you're
But
right.
yes, it's a good point. He is... a lot of it is not intrinsic to the child. It's his upbringing. But the thing is, I think there's an opportunity to fix it. The problem you have with trying to fix it is you've got the Alayne route, which is to sort of like,
Pacify.
make deals with him
and
pacify him. Then you've got the Lothar Brune route, which is to drag him to make him... I mean, which is also reasonable because he is a child and he shouldn't be allowed to act like a lord while he's being a petulant child. But the problem is that triggers the fits, which... are just as intolerable. So it's hard to actually correct him, really.
You're right. It's really a challenge. And the third option is to drug him, which doesn't seem like a good idea either on lots of levels, which we'll get to in a second. But, one detail that stuck out to me about him that we learned in this chapter is that he came to the Eyrie when he was 6. He's 8 now. And he's never left.
He's never been down the mountain, yes.
So, when you're 8, you probably don't even remember much about being 6. He might barely have any memories of not being alone up at the top of this mountain, pretty much.
It's very true. It's very true. I noticed that too.
Yeah. But speaking about being at the top of this mountain, I love the Eyrie. I think it's the most beautiful place in Westeros. The physical descriptions and views are unlike anywhere else that they describe in the known world. And I know the Arryn's one of the castle that was more grand and regal than the Gates of the Moon, the mundane castle. And of course, it is impregnable. But I think maybe they might have reached a bit too far and built a bit too high, because the road up and down is just unacceptable, really.
Yes, it's not great, yes. It's the kind of place where you would go to and stay for 2 years without ever leaving again.
Exactly. And so they built this grand, beautiful, regal castle that nobody can get to. They can't hold balls and functions and stuff. Could you imagine, ladies and lords dressed in their finest trying to cross that stone bridge that's a yard wide? I mean,
before jumping into the turnip basket.
Right. So, it's as much as I love it, I think it might be a bit, they could have had equally amazing views. Well, not quite equally, but they could have had quite amazing views and grand opulence at Stone's height or even Snow's height. They don't have to go all the way to the top. So
this is true, yes.
That's what I kept thinking about.
They would have been just about as... I mean, the Gates of the Moon is already pretty impregnable. How much impregnableness do you need, really?
Right. Yes, you've got the Bloody Gate and the Gates of the Moon. You don't have to be at the top of the Giant's Lance. Anyway.
The one thing I'll say is the Vale is not as invulnerable as the Gates of the Moon and the Bloody Gate suggests itself, because you can come the other way. I mean, there's a whole, there's 1,000 miles of coastline you can aim at,
Now, a lot of it's rocky, but there are port towns, so yeah.
True, yeah. So, Sweet Robin kisses Alayne, and it's just a child's kiss, although even a child's kiss without permission is a bit obnoxious. But she recalls another stolen kiss. Or does she? Why is this a mystery, Mackelly?
Well, because she recalls being kissed by the Hound, but we were there.
We were there, and it never happened.
It never happened, yes. Yeah. At first, when she was thinking about this stolen kiss, I thought she was talking about Littlefinger kissing her in the Godswood.
I did too.
And she thinks about it again later in the chapter, and she had thought about it, I believe, in Alayne 1 as well, or maybe it was the last Sansa
I wondered about that, or I wondered if it was just when we were in spoilers we talked about it. But I think she did talk. I think she did think about it.
Yes, yeah.
And it is clearly a false memory she's derived, possibly from the stress of that situation, because it was a scary situation with a sinister-looking man in her bedchamber.
Yeah. Weirdly, though, she remembers the feel of his rough lips on hers, which... He did have his face really close to her. Maybe, I'm sure she could feel his breath on her. But George Martin has, I'm going off memory here, I believe he has said that she's an unreliable narrator here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
where she is reliable is in talking Sweet Robin down from his problem behavior. But that's not all she does in this chapter. We kind of brushed over it, but she bosses the servants around and she runs the place. In Littlefinger's absence, she seems to be pretty much in charge. And I mean, given that she's a natural born daughter, it would be easy for servants to sort of like spurn her commands. But there's a little bit of the Stark, I'm born to this coming through, even though she's Alayne, you know.
It comes very easily to her.
Right, which is interesting because she never really had it before. She's always just been a pampered little girl previously. Well, pampered little girl, then prisoner of a horrible regime.
Yeah.
Now pretending to be a bastard. But so she's never had an opportunity to be like this, to actually sort of like run a household. But she is doing it, and she's taking to it like a duck to water.
Yeah. You know, she might have had some level of training from Cat.
Yeah, I'm sure she did to a certain extent, and she liked that kind of thing. She liked the feminine pursuits that Arryn eschewed. But it is interesting how it's sort of like naturally coming to her. Yes, so it's definitely born to it. I'll word of sympathy for Maester Coleman. Last chapter, porridge was thrown at him, and this time, porridge that had been eaten and excreted was thrown at him. so rough old life for Mr. Coleman.
Yeah, I'm guessing he won't mind getting down off the Eyrie, and I'm sure there's a maester at the Gates of the Moon as well, and they can maybe tag team here.
I mean, just having a little bit more room, to be further away from the child would be good.
Right.
But he does. But she's right. He does care about the child. He cares about the child in a way that she and Littlefinger, she appreciates about themselves that they care about the child, but they also care about his position as well.
Right. Yes.
That's why she won't have him drugged and tied to the mule.
Yeah. Yeah. And so little Robert says early in the chapter that Maester Coleman put something vile in his milk. And when Alayne conveys this message to Coleman, he says, well, he kind of stutters. I was just trying. And then he stops and says, was he bleeding from the nose? Like he was concerned that this might be a side effect of whatever vile substance was put into the milk.
Well, isn't it sweet sleep? I thought that's what he was giving him, but that was help me out here. My understanding was Maester Coleman was against his instincts as a maester, giving the child sweet sleep to help him sleep,
he was.
Knowing that he couldn't give him too much of that because it would have long-term bad effects.
Yes, and so it seems like, based on the wording in this chapter, that Robert refers to it as sweet milk because he puts it in his milk, and it's got a sweet taste, so kids probably like that sweet taste. So Robert asked for sweet milk the night before, but Maester Coleman wouldn't give it to him. Instead, he put something vile in his milk. So it doesn't sound like whatever was put in his milk last night was sweet sleep. And Coleman says to Alayne, he had it 3 days past. And she says, he wanted more last night and you refused him. And Coleman's response is, it was too soon. So whatever else he gave him last night, there must be some sort of side effect involving nosebleeds. But the whole thing with the sweet sleep is rather dangerous. Jenny mentioned I think it was the first Alayne chapter, that she was talking about dosage, and she said that a pinch of sweet sleep is what Littlefinger told Coleman to give him. But a pinch of sweet sleep, we learned from the Cat of the Canals chapter, is an adult dose to give an adult sleepless, dreamless sleep. Remember the waif was kind of instructing Cat of the Canals, Arya, and she said a few grains would stop shaking hands and slow heart rate. So they've been giving him more than that for an adult. So it seems like they're giving him a lot.
Yeah, and there is of course the possibility that Maester Coleman's is cut with something, and so the dosages aren't quite the same. But it's a good point. They've clearly been. The thing is, I don't think you're sensing something here that I didn't really sense. You're sensing that Maester Coleman is giving him something more different, dangerous for whatever reason.
Just different. Not, I don't know, dangerous or not, but different to the point that as an alternative to sweet sleep, so that he doesn't
if
get
it
overdosed.
isn't dangerous, why is he worried about his nose bleeding?
Right, so yes.
I thought this was all, I've just been dosing this kid with sweet sleep, which is, I'm dosing him at levels that I shouldn't dose an adult at. And one of the side effects that would trigger, the one warning side effect would be nosebleeds. I thought it was just sweet sleep, but maybe you're onto something that I'm not.
Well, the nosebleeds could be related to sweet sleep, but Robert asked for sweet sleep the night before, and Maester Coleman refused him and put something vile in his milk instead. Right. Or maybe he's just gotten so accustomed to sweet milk that regular milk tastes vile. There's that option too.
That's what I'm thinking. And Maester Coleman is just worried about the, that's where I went with it. But you think Maester Coleman's a horrible poisoner?
I think Maester Coleman's trying to prevent an overdose of sweet sleep. So he gave him some alternative. And the side effects of that are nosebleeds, which are less dangerous than whatever the side effects of overdosing on sweet sleep might be. Because he says, I'll give it to him for this ride down and for the feast, but he can't have any more for 6 months or longer. So it does feel like he's worried. He also, I think we've skipped over this, he mentions that it doesn't leave the body. He didn't get to finish his sentence for how long it doesn't leave the body, but it sounds like it stays within you for a certain amount of time, and that's dangerous.
Pedantry is coming.
Oh, okay. But do you think, based on how we know this chapter ends, could this be the means that Littlefinger plans to use for removing Robert as Lord of the Eyrie?
Yes, of course. Of course this is it. I mean, like, why wouldn't you? The child is sickly. If this child died in his sleep, no one would be terribly surprised. Right. And especially if you could somehow get Maester Coleman to be complicit in it, when everybody knows how hard Maester Coleman is working to try and keep this kid safe,
Yeah.
That it gives you a little bit of coverage for what otherwise is a pretty obvious plan to murder the Lord of the Vale.
Yeah, Alayne mentions that her father, in quotes, says we can't let Robert's frailty and cowardice be known too widely, but I think when it comes to the point where you want to remove him, his frailty, yes, would be useful at that point. So maybe he's waiting for the right time for people to see how frail and sickly Robert is.
So Lothar Brune, who has been a protector of Sansa while she's been in the Eyrie, he has a bit of a soft spot for Mya Stone, which is kind of sweet. Yeah, and then his backstory is given, which is seemingly less sweet, it seemed to me. It wasn't quite clear what happened, but when his father died, he went to visit his family, and they basically refused him, saying that he was not of their family. But then, so they're the Brunes of Brown Hollow, is who they are. But Lothar Brune would never speak of what happened afterward, except he learned all he knew of arms the hard way, which sounded like he fought them.
It does sound possibly nefarious. I thought that too. But then I went digging to see what the deal was with the Brunes of Brown Hollow, and the family still exists.
So maybe what he meant was I had to make my own way in the world.
Yes, okay. I thought that, yeah. Yeah,
well, I was thinking still less sweet than his soft spot for Mya Stone.
Right. I was thinking either maybe he wanted Sansa to think he's more dangerous than he actually is, or what you had just said, maybe he had to fight to survive alone in the world without any help from family.
Okay. I'm reassured. Thank you.
But so Sansa thinks that Lothar and Mya are a pretty good match, and that it would be different if her father had acknowledged her. Most people seem to know that Mya is Robert's daughter. However, it's unclear if Mya knows.
Right.
She's telling that story about the strong man tossing her high in the air, but she never mentions that that person is her father or that it was the late King Robert.
Right. Yeah. Does Alayne say anything to her that would tip her off? Because she certainly says plenty to us that would tip her off, but I'm trying to remember what she actually vocalized to Mya.
Nothing to Mya. She tells Randa that Alayne learned from Maddie, who is a big gossip, one of the maids in the Eyrie, and that's where she got her story from. So if Maddie knew, and Maddie's a big gossip, then everyone in the Eyrie must know. And of course, they're pretty well contained up there. But but it did make me think about how earlier in A Feast for Crows, Cersei recalls King Robert, wanting to bring his bastard daughter to court. She's 19, so his oldest child. And Cersei's response was, fine by me, but court is a dangerous place for a bastard girl, kind of threatening her subtly. Yeah. Robert hit her, but he didn't follow through. And I was thinking, after we met her here, I was thinking that was probably for the best. I don't imagine she would fit well in King's Landing or like it very much. There's not a lot of mountains.
One thing to mention, anyone who served in the Eyrie for 20 years or more would have met Robert multiple times, right? I mean, he lived there.
Right.
As a young man, so they would know him very well. So if she resembles him the way Alayne is indicating she resembles him, everybody who goes up and down that mountain would be like, we know who your dad is.
Yeah, it's just weird that rumor has never made it.
Not reach. Or has. Yeah.
We don't know. It's unclear.
Yeah.
But Randa also says that Mya was once in love with Michael Redfort and he thought she thought they were going to get married, but then Michael was married to Bronze Yon's daughter. And back in that cat chapter, when she was making her way up to the Eyrie with Tyrion, she was, brought up by Mya, and Mya talked to her a lot about love and marriage to Michael Redfort and how he was a squire and they hoped to be married whenever he was knighted. And Kat at the time felt bad because she thought it was pretty unlikely that this bastard girl was going to marry a Redfort from an old noble house like Michael is. So turned out to be right.
The other thing is, Mya knows that her name is Mya Stone, right?
Yes, she refers to herself as a stone is a mountain's daughter. So yes.
Right. So in some respects, she knows that she has a father of considerable standing, and it's not Jon Arryn. Let's be honest.
Right.
So who else is there? Could have been Ned Stark, I suppose. You know him. He was always.
That's right.
So Sansa, Alayne is worried about life at the Gates of the Moon. She, Littlefinger has friends in King's Landing still who've told him that the Queen has sent men looking for both Sansa and Tyrion. She's right to be worried. There's an awful lot more traffic. I mean, at the start of this chapter, we learn there's only like 20 people left in the Eyrie, but the Gates of the Moon is going to be traffic and people coming by.
Yeah.
And indeed, one of the people she meets in this chapter is somebody who is on the hunt for her.
Right. So. Yeah. So when Alayne meets Petyr down at the Gates of the Moon, he mentions that Oswell had returned on the Merling King to Gulltown from King's Landing. So I'm thinking that's where he got his information from.
Right.
So we're talking about Oswell Kettleblack, the father of the 3 Kettleblacks at the Red Keep. So do the boys know that Littlefinger has Sansa and not told Cersei? That's, we had wondered if they were still Littlefinger's men because they're so ingrained in Cersei's life. But it seems so at some level here. They could easily earn that lordship and the other rewards that they're fishing for.
That little piece of information, yeah.
Especially Osney. There's a much easier path, Osney. You don't have to admit to treason and go to the wall.
I was going to say the same thing. If I was Osney, I'd be like, you know what, I'm going to accuse the Queen of having slept with me and get sentenced to death and then sent to the wall. And then, you know what, Cersei, I've got something you might be interested in.
Right. I've got a better idea.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. Yeah. So Lady Anya Waynwood has shocked everyone by going to the Lionel Corbray wedding. Why is this a shock, Mackelly?
Well, because Lady Anya, she was one of the Lord's declarant that was holding out against Littlefinger. They all agreed to give him 1 year, but she was not coming to this wedding. She was not on Littlefinger's side. Her showing up, along with the Knight of Nine Stars, who is Simon Templeton, that's 2 more of the Lord's declarant who have showed up. Lord Benedar Belmore was also in attendance, so that's 3 of these 6 Lords declarant who.
But why is presence? What does the presence of these lords at this wedding mean? I mean, it just feels like, well, it's a Lord of the Vale getting married. We'll turn up.
Yeah, I think it's because Littlefinger brokered it, and so it's a support of Littlefinger as much as anything else.
I got you. Okay.
But we learn later in the chapter that Littlefinger has been buying up the Waynwood debt, and that helps with the betrothal, the possible betrothal of Sansa and Harry. But it leaves the Lord declarants halved from the initial 6. Bronze Jan Royce is the most powerful Lord in the Vale. He's still holding out. Gilwood Hunter is the new head of House Hunter. Littlefinger told Sansa in that first Alayne chapter that he will likely be killed by his younger brother, who is actually the one that killed their father.
Right.
Then Horton Redford, he's an elderly man, and Littlefinger thinks he might die in a year. Because remember, as I just said, Littlefinger has a year to prove himself as Lord Protector. So
that's right, yeah.
It might end up just being Bronze Jan that is standing against him.
So I was going to ask you how reliable you think, I mean, obviously we don't think it's very reliable. How reliable do you think Randa's intel is? Because she tells Alayne 2 facts that are the opposite of what we think to be true. She says that Riverrun has fallen and that Dragonstone is holding out.
Right.
But it's the other way around for us. We know Dragonstone has fallen, but Riverrun still is still under siege. Timelines are tricky in this book, so it feels like Dragonstone has fallen. Right. But it feels like maybe time has elapsed here, and Riverrun might have fallen too.
Yes, that's the question. Did Edmure go into Riverrun and do as Jaime wanted and yield the castle?
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're right. It sounds like maybe what Martin's doing here is showing that rumors spread and information isn't always delivered accurately, I think.
That's what I felt too, yeah.
But she does get news of her half-brother Jon Snow as Lord Commander. She discounts him a little bit. She says he's only a half-brother. I haven't thought about him in a long time, which is probably some Catelyn Stark influence in her there. But then she does say it would be sweet to see him again. And it's really the first Stark sibling news that that anyone has gotten in a long time. So that it's something.
Did Cat of the Canals never hear about Jon? No, she didn't, did she?
She did from Darren, right? Before she killed Darren.
That's right. But my concern about this conversation between Randa and Alayne, where Alayne has this nice, unusually for her, nice thought about Jon, is did Randa, who is the shrewd operator we know, get a little bit of information out of Alayne that would be useful to her? Yeah. I feel like if you volunteer that you know the name of the new Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, that's weird if you're Alayne, the natural-born daughter of Petyr Baelish.
Right. How would you be expected to know the name of a bastard of Ned Stark's,
Right. Maybe the last name. Sure. Was he called Snow? Well done. You know the name.
Right.
But Jon Snow, it's like, and I love the fact that Randa doesn't comment on it. She's like, yeah, it is a Snow. That's right. And just,
Right. Shrewd operator, possibly.
Shrewd operator. Mm-hmm.
And it made me think of the question that Sansa asked when she heard that Randa was waiting at the castle sky. She thought, why would she climb the mountain just to go down again? And that's a good question. Why did she come all the way up just to turn around and go straight back down? Was it possibly to get to Sansa first? Get her
Whose
alone?
daughter is she?
She is...
Nestor Royce's daughter.
Yeah, Nestor
Right.
Royce, yeah.
Okay.
Was it to get to Sansa first? Get her alone? Befriend her? Needle some info out of her? And then the next question about all that is, why is she doing that?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Could it be related to the knight that we will get to here? Well, I guess we might as well talk about him now, right? The Sir Shadrich.
I had not even thought of that. I just assumed she was on a info gathering mission for the Royces.
We'll be right back.
This episode is sponsored by Audible. To get a free audiobook, or 2 if you're an Amazon Prime member, go to our exclusive URL, audibletrial.com/ghostsharrenhal. You can find the link in our show notes. Possibly, but also we see someone who we know is actively hunting Sansa.
But walk my steps for a moment, if you will. If the Royces, knowing Randa is good at this kind of thing, were to say, hey, you know what? Coming down that mountain and alone for a whole day is one Alayne Baelish. And we
Alayne
would
Stone,
love
but yeah.
to... Oh, yes, that's right. Alayne Stone. And she's not even a Baelish. So we'd love to know a little bit more about her. Why don't you go up there and befriend her and ride down with her, you know?
That could be. It could be.
That seems more plausible to me than Sir Shadrich going, why don't you just go climb that big mountain and see what you find?
Yes, unless Shadrich has been hanging around the Gate to the Moon for a while, befriended Randa, and said, hey, I'm looking for Sansa Stark. If we find her, we could get a big payload, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And the two of them are in cahoots to cash in.
So we meet Shadrich with Littlefinger. Can I just a quick aside on Littlefinger? How weird is it that he thinks she should kiss her? She should kiss him the way they kiss the second time in front of these 3 knights.
I know. It makes no sense. That all 3 of them would be like, ew.
Deeply disturbing.
Right. Yes.
The little kiss on the cheek is exactly what a teenage daughter would do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
I assume he's just perving and that's all. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
He doesn't actually want her to do that in front of people.
I would hope not. We'll get to the grooming thing in a second, but let's just remind everyone why it is a big deal that Sir Shadrich is here at the Gates of the Moon and sitting in the same room as Alayne. Do you want to go ahead?
Well, you tend to know these kinds of things better than I do, but I remember Sir Shadrich. He's I can't even remember his nickname. He's a mouse of some sort.
Yes, the Mad Mouse.
Mad Mouse, exactly, the Mad Mouse. And he was he rode with Brienne for a short time before just going to go out on a hunch here. She got up early in the morning and left him.
Yes, she did.
Didn't have to remember that one. That's just her MO. But he was he knew what the value of finding Sansa Stark was, and he was on the hunt.
On the hunt, exactly. So the question is it just luck that he showed up here? Is he on to Petyr Baelish's game with Sansa? Did someone finally outplay Littlefinger?
Yeah, the one thing that's strange about that is that he's in the company of Littlefinger. It's like if I were Littlefinger, so Littlefinger arrived in the camp, and presumably he didn't arrive with Sir Shadrich.
Right. Yeah, it seems unlikely.
He did. So they met, and they got into discussion. What discussion were they having? What is Sir Shadrich's cover story? Is it something along the lines of, I'm looking for my daughter, my sister... She is
auburn hair,
auburn-haired, made fair of face, you know. Oh, funnily enough, I've got a natural-born daughter. Looks just like that. She's just coming down the mountain. Send Randa.
Well, so there's 2 other knights with him. It's Morgarth the Merry and Byron the Beautiful, I think their names are.
Right. We'd not met those 2 before, right?
No, those were just... And I think he's just hiring more swords, is the story that he gives Alayne when she asks,
I see.
what's with hedge knights. But, I mean, the fact that he's at the Gates of the Moon, I guess, isn't a huge deal, because even Brienne, before she got derailed, was thinking, if I'm looking for Sansa Stark, one good place to look is the Eyrie, where her aunt is. Now, maybe he gets to the Gates of the Moon and they said, no, you're not going up to the Eyrie. Besides, they're all coming down here shortly anyway. So,
Yeah.
And he's just hanging around now. But he is in the room with Littlefinger when Sansa arrives, which feels like maybe he's trying to make some connections and networks and check things out.
Yeah. The one thing I'll say though is, you wouldn't think it would be Petyr Baelish's daughter that you're looking for, right? So you wouldn't think to not tell Petyr Baelish the truth.
Oh, yeah. Right. I see what you're
Why
saying.
would you? You would not think, oh, Petyr Baelish is involved in this, I should be cagey around him. Maybe you would. Maybe you're cagey around everyone.
Maybe you're cagey around everyone because you want the reward. But,
well, that's true. That's true.
So maybe you don't share it with too many people.
Yeah.
But now we can get to the whole grooming thing. I mean, the kissing is just in front of these three knights or not is just gross. And, it feels like he's trying to make it status quo for them to deep kiss like that. Because, like I said, the chapter ends with when he says, I'm giving you a husband, the Eyrie, and Winterfell. That is surely worth a kiss. It sounds like he wants another kiss after the kiss that they've already had.
Yeah.
And there's other things that we become privy to in this chapter and that we've learned over time that he's doing and saying. Like, he tells her that young girls are always happiest with older men, and in reference to Lothar and Mya. And surely he's only referring to them and Lord Lionel and his new young bride, not laying any tracks for future plans here. But, and in a lot of ways, he's just like, he's confusing her and mixing up her feelings and making her feel that she's only safe when she's around him.
Yeah.
He has her convinced that she must be Alayne thoroughly, inside and out, not without reason.
No,
but he's just really, it feels like he's really classically grooming her.
Yeah. And the weird thing is from the get-go, if I was Petyr Baelish and I had his wants and desires, I would be playing this much more carefully. I would, because you said he wants her to believe that he is her only haven and respite from the troubles of the world, right?
Right.
Make it that way. Don't confuse the situation by constantly putting her in an awkward position. If you can make her truly believe that, you can grow the other part of it later on, perhaps,
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
I mean, you could wait till she was 16 and then ask to marry her, I'm rich, you're Sansa Stark.
Right.
But he puts her teeth on edge all the time with his behavior. And that's undermines all of the sort of like making him her safety blanket.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Yeah,
but maybe he just can't help himself.
Right, yeah, it may be. I mean, it seems like he's always in control, but maybe not, because these kisses are just... It feels like, she, we didn't get her thoughts. Did we? Did we get her thoughts afterward? Did she ruminate on it?
Not really.
But,
Because my thoughts would have been, I think I did the right thing, honestly.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah,
if I jumped in your lap and kissed you on the mouth, they would have been like, that's not right. Especially Sir Shadrich would have been like, well, cross that one off the list of possible daughters of Petyr Baelish.
Well, maybe, yeah. Well, there's that silver lining, I guess. Yeah, it's gross, and it's...
Yeah, it is.
So,
to merrier things... Littlefinger said that the peace the Five Kings left us won't survive the Three Queens, but when I read it, you've written this question in the thing, which queens is he talking about? And I wondered that too. I have a trio written down.
Okay, let's hear them.
I've got Cersei, Marjorie, and Daenerys.
That's definitely Cersei and Marjorie. I think are the two solid ones, right? The third one is the one. I think it depends on what he knows. If he knows the events in Slaver's Bay and foresees the arrival of Daenerys Targaryen in Westeros, then it's probably Dany. However, there's another option. If word of the troubles in Dorne reached him, then it could be Myrcella that could be that third queen.
Myrcella could be the third. Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Okay, and one of those. Let's do 4 queens.
Well, yeah. Well, Myrcella is the more imminent threat, especially if the harm to her reaches King's Landing about how she's lost an ear and been disfigured.
Yeah, that
could certainly create more imminent problems than Daenerys, who's stuck on the other side of the world right now. And I was doing some looking around, and some people suggested that Olenna Tyrell was
that thought crossed my mind as well.
That she's secretly pulling all the strings for the Tyrells.
Yeah, but you wouldn't think of her as a queen, so it just doesn't seem to fit.
Right?
Her name flitted across my mind.
The Queen of Thorns, is her nickname, so I guess that way.
True, yeah, very true. So, Petyr Baelish has initiated a betrothal to Harold Harding, who is, by dint of lots of Arryns not making it to adulthood, the heir to the Vale until Robert sires a child of his own. God. It's only a betrothal for now, but it's a masterstroke by Petyr Baelish. I've got to say, this is the Petyr Baelish that we know and love. I mean, he has arranged it so that Sansa Stark could become the Lady of the Vale, and then perhaps get Winterfell back, which is, I mean, that's Team Stark right there.
Yeah. So this betrothal confuses me in conjuncture with all the kissing, because, well, first of all, it's only a betrothal until Cersei, as he puts it, is done and Sansa is widowed. So it seems like he plans to reveal Sansa once the coast is clear, but he also seems rather desirous of her. So what is his master plan? To marry her off and forget about her? If he unveils Sansa as not being his daughter, but Sansa Stark, he loses the association to her. So,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, to me, it seems like you don't have to wait for Tyrion to die or Cersei to die before you make this marriage. Surely any Septon would be willing to, any Septon bribed and threatened enough, would be willing to annul the wedding of Sansa to Tyrion, which was never consummated. It seems like,
right,
surely that's possible. So you don't have to wait for anything. You could go ahead and do this. Maybe that's why he wants it to be a betrothal, because he wants to have first dibs on Sansa, kind of thing. I don't know.
Maybe. I just don't get how... his daughter will not be married to the Lord of the Eyrie, because if she's Sansa Stark, then it's known she's not his daughter.
Yeah, and that was I misunderstood as I read the first time. I thought what he was looking for was that his daughter would be the Lady of the Vale, and therefore he would be in a position of power. But that's not his plan. His plan is that this all comes to pass, and Sansa is revealed as Sansa at that time. And
right.
Therefore, you're right, he loses all power at that moment.
Yes.
So, how did Harry, who is not even called Arryn, become the heir to the Vale?
Right, so Littlefinger goes through this whole long, very detailed description of how this came to pass. And he starts with Lord Jasper, who is Jon Arryn's father. He had 3 children, Jon, Alice, and Ronald. Now, Jon married Lysa, and Littlefinger mentions that he married a young wife with reason to believe that she's fertile, which even further points toward the tansy tea having been used to prevent pregnancy with Lysa, which even further proves that she was previously pregnant and that she is capable of pregnancy. And so they do have a child, Robert. Obviously, we've met Robert. Yes. Now, the youngest son, Ronald, marries a Belmore, and they have a son named Elbert, who was heir for years, but he was killed by Mad King Aerys. He was part of Brandon Stark's posse who rode in the King's Landing demanding Rhaegar's head. You remember how that all but Ethan Glover were killed of that posse. So that wipes out that branch of the family tree. So now the sister Alice's family tree is the one that gets rather complicated. So Alice marries Ellis Waynwood. Alice and Ellis. They have 9 kids, 8 girls and a boy. The boy, the son Jasper, died, as did the oldest 2, or at least 2 sisters, also died of a pox. The oldest living Waynwood daughter married Dennis Arryn, who was killed by Hand of the King John Connington in the Battle of the Bells. His pregnant wife, the oldest Waynwood daughter, and their son died soon afterward. So that that didn't work out either for an heir. Then tragedy befell 4 of the 5 remaining daughters. One was scarred by the same pox that killed 2 of her sisters. She became a septa. One was seduced by a sellsword, had a child. The child died. She joined the Silent Sisters. The 3rd proved barren. The 4th was carried off by burned men on her way to the Riverlands to marry a Bracken. So, the youngest daughter married a landed knight and had a child named Harry. The daughter, Harry's mom, then died. So, that mother, Harry's mother, was John's niece through his sister Alice and Robert's first cousin, which makes Harry John's great nephew and Robert's first cousin once removed.
Okay. Beautiful.
So a lot of tragedy in the Arryn family.
The seed is not strong.
No, it's not.
Well, yeah. So thanks for that. So just before we move on, I would like to say the Lords Declarant are being bought off, but they're not convinced by Littlefinger. And
right.
If something happens to Robert, and then they notice that Littlefinger has arranged for his natural-born daughter to be married to the heir to now the Lord of the Vale, they're going to think he had something to do with the murder of Robert. It's inevitable.
I see what you're saying.
And it's going to put a lot of strain on them to rebel against him. Now, to what end? I don't know. Maybe to stop the marriage. But maybe that's the reason he comes out with her being Sansa Stark at that point, because then that is a suitable marriage for the Lord of the Vale.
Yes. Although if Robert... I guess it depends on timing. Does Robert die first, allowing Harry to become heir? Maybe that's why he wants a long betrothal, so that there's already a betrothal in place. Yeah. Then Robert dies. Harry becomes heir. His betrothed turns out to be Sansa Stark, and they all, minus Robert, live happily ever after, I guess.
Strange.
But, as we talked about, the plans to kill Robert using his sickly nature, that's how it sounds when Petyr explains it at the end of the chapter here. So that's why I mentioned earlier, is that why he's so unconcerned about the amount of sweet sleep that's being given to the boy?
Oh, yes, I'm sure that's why Littlefinger doesn't care about that, because to him it's like, well, fine. Keep dosing him. That'll kill him. Well, keep giving it to him.
Yeah. Now, the plan that's unveiled at the end of the chapter, I'm giving you a husband, the Eyrie, and Winterfell, does seem like Sansa's best chance of recovering Winterfell in the north.
So, heck yeah. Yeah.
Now that she knows, Petyr Baelish didn't... When she said, if something happened to Robert, Harry would be heir, he didn't just say, yeah, you're right, if something. He outright said, oh no, he's sickly, he's gonna die. So, does she go along with the plan, knowing that it's the best chance she has of getting all of the Stark things back, even if it means knowingly allowing Robert to be poisoned to death? She gets all she wanted. She gets the dashing, gallant husband that she's always wanted for so long. Return the Starks to the Lord of Winterfell.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's going to be...
I gotta say, Robert does himself no favours here, because there must be times when she would like to kill him herself.
Right. You're probably not wrong there.
And when she meets this Harry, he's going to be, like you said, he's going to be charming and sort of like, he's going to read her poetry and sing her songs. And she's going to be like, oh, dude, I'm pushing that kid out of the basket next time. You know I'm right. You know,
yeah, you very well could be.
We need to move on. Spoilers. Join us at the upper tiers of the Buy Me a Coffee Sustainer levels, and you can join us for spoilers. All right. Well, thank you for the spoilers, Mackelly. How about some background?
All right. Well, Sweet Robin loves the stories about the Winged Knight, so much though that it's part of the negotiations between him and Alayne to get him out of bed. 100 lemon cakes and 5 stories was the final agreed upon negotiation, I believe. Well, Sansa thinks about the Winged Knight being artist Arryn, and that's debatable. Well, actually, it's pretty unlikely. The Winged Knight is a legendary figure from the Age of Heroes, which was thousands of years before the coming of the Andals. Artist Arryn, on the other hand, was the first king of Mountain and Vale and the founder of House Arryn. But before he reached those heights, he was an Andal Knight. You see what I did there?
Yeah, I did see what you did there.
He was an Andal Knight, dubbed the Falcon Knight because he adorned his shield with a moon and falcon. Sound familiar, House Arryn?
It does.
He rose to his lofty status by defeating King Robar II Royce and his First Men army in the Battle of Seven Stars, which we've talked about, I think, a little bit in other background segments. Afterward, the First Men of the Vale bent their knee and named him King of Mountain and Vale, and so began the rule of House Arryn in the Vale. His association with the Winged Knight stems from singers changing facts to meld him with the Winged Knight of legend over the hundreds of years. Artists had the Gates of the Moon constructed as his seat at the foot of the Giant's Lance. However, his grandson Roland I Arryn felt that the Gates of the Moon were not grand enough for his house and too vulnerable to attack. Therefore, he began construction of a grand seat high atop the Giant's Lance. Of course, getting there was such a pain that possibly hardly anyone ever witnessed its beauty.
True enough. Comparison with the television show, Petyr Baelish and Sansa do leave the Eyrie, but they do it to tour the Vale as the new first family.
Okay.
Littlefinger has a different marriage in store for Sansa, which might not... It's not a spoiler to what we know, but it might turn out to be a spoiler, so I'm not going to mention it here just in case.
Okay.
Mya Stone and Randa are both dropped. Sweet Robin, on the other hand, was sadly not dropped.
In more ways than one.
Exactly. All right. Pedantry. So 2 things. Didn't it seem a little bit strange and out of character for Mya to suddenly wax lyrical about her father?
I know what you mean. I thought that too when she just randomly, as like just moments or what seemed to us just paragraphs after Alayne talks about who her father is, she just decides to discuss him.
I did wonder though. I tried to think why it might be plausible, and the thing is, she's traveling with Alayne and Randa, both of whom have got fathers who acknowledge them and look after them.
Right.
And maybe in the presence of them, she wants to sort of big up her own father.
Yeah.
It did seem a bit odd.
The story ended with her father leaving her.
Abandoning, yes. Yeah. It wasn't. So the other one occurred to me as we were talking about the dosage of the sweet sleep. He didn't want to give him sweet sleep last night because it had only been 3 days since his last dose. But today he's giving him 2 doses.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I guess is the feast either way. If the feast is tonight or tomorrow, because it was closer to dawn than dusk, I think.
True.
When they got in, so it's probably tomorrow. But still, twice in 2 days, even.
I think it was supposed to be tonight, but I think they took too long getting down the mountain. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, yeah, it makes sense. I understand where you're coming from there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. News and notes.
Well, actor and now author Josh Gad, who played Olaf in Frozen and a lot of other roles as well, was in Santa Fe recently promoting his new children's book, Picture Face Lizzie. He stopped in at Beastly Books to do a signing, and afterward, he and Martin had a sit down and chatted for a while. Martin has a link to the video of the chat on his blog, and honestly, I haven't looked at it yet, but I do plan on checking it out at some point.
Yes, and the George Martin produced short film The Ugly Chickens, based on the late Howard Waldrop story, took home the award for Best Live Action Short Film at the Pittsburgh Short Film Festival, November 23rd, 24th. According to George Martin, the Pittsburgh Shorts is one of the premier short film festivals in the country.
That's the only reason I put that in there.
Because of the Pittsburgh thing. Yeah,
because my hometown got some praise and recognition.
All right, what's our holiday plans, Mackelly? I mean, not you and me.
Right, well. We'll work that out later.
Right.
So the plan is on Christmas Eve, we're going to drop our ever popular and also fun outtakes episode. So you all have that to look forward to.
I don't remember us flubbing a single line all year, Mackelly.
No, I don't think so. It might be really short. Might not
Probably
have anything.
Be, yeah.
I'll have to scrounge. And there will be no episode on New Year's Eve, the 31st. We're going to take a bit of a holiday break, and then we'll be back with you in the new year.
All right, sounds good. And while you're thinking about the holidays, the GOH Threadless merchandise store is still open for the holidays. Get a move on. Last chance to get something before the holidays. The website is ghostsofharrenhal.threadless.com.
That's right, and we will be taking it back down after the holiday. We managed to get it open for this period because we thought all of you, some of you, any of you, might enjoy some GOH merchandise. And finally, Spotify Wrapped has begun coming out, and we're seeing lots of you post your wraps that include us. Keep them coming if you tag us in them on Instagram or elsewhere. We will share them on our Instagram story, and we thank you all for doing that. And we thank you all for listening to the point where we end up on your Spotify Wrapped.
Yeah, very much so. Thank you. All right, let's conclude this one. So Sansa has to woo Harry to earn her betrothal, which is we kind of skipped over that in the discussion, but that is part of it because Mya Waynwood would not commit to the wedding unless Harry agreed to it when he met Alayne. And there's work for Sansa to do here. She needs to make Harry believe that she would be a good wife. Honestly, I think mothering that idiot Sweet Robin would probably convince him,
Yeah. Aside from that, I mean, she's kind, courteous, beautiful, she's all the things that young Westerosi men, or, a lot of them would desire. But she doesn't want to get married, as she thinks to us. Might she intentionally fail to prevent the marriage from happening? Although the pitch to reclaim Winterfell in the north is rather tempting. She does know that Winterfell was sacked. So, she's got to calculate that in a bit, I guess.
The only thing preventing Winterfell being rebuilt is a Stark in the north. That's all that's needed.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And I'm still confused a little bit as to what Littlefinger's primary play is, because the moment he reveals Sansa as Sansa and weds her to the Lord of the Vale, that's all fine. He can do all that. He immediately cuts out all of his own power, and he becomes, unless Sansa will protect him, he becomes persona non grata in the Vale, I would think.
Yes, exactly. So, does he kill both Robert and Harry after Sansa and Harry have a son, and then marry Sansa and raise this child as their stepfather?
Oh, maybe. Or does he kill Harry before they have a child, and then he claims both Winterfell and the Vale for himself?
Yeah, although if he's not raising an Arryn of some type,
yeah, you're right.
It's going to be challenging.
Yeah.
Maybe Sansa and Harry live in Winterfell, and they're so thankful for bringing them together and protecting Sansa that they make Littlefinger the Lord Protector of the Vale.
I gotta say, given the amount of enemies that Petyr Baelish is going to have collected by the time this book is over, the Vale is a good spot for him.
At the Eyrie, yeah, especially.
The Eyrie in particular, yes, yeah.
Or the other way around. Maybe they live in the Eyrie and Sansa makes Petyr Baelish Warden of the North and Lord of Winterfell. There's got to be a Stark in the North, but there's got to be an Arryn in Eyrie, so I don't know what his plan is.
Yeah. Has Sansa been outplayed by Randa? That's my question. I think she has. I think Randa is onto something.
Right.
And I don't think it will work in Sansa's benefit that information gets out. That Alayne knows too much about the North to be Littlefinger's bastard daughter.
Yeah, absolutely. Why did she ride up the mountain just to turn around? It was not like it was a joyride. That was a
arduous day.
Yes, exactly. And is is it just a random coincidence that the Mad Mouse or Shadrich shows up at the gates of the moon? I was thinking when I saw him there, too bad Brienne didn't stick with that travel group. Maybe she'd be here as well. Yeah. and she knows what Cat looks like pretty well, so maybe she would see the
Tully
look.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. It'd be funny, actually, if Brienne and the Mad Mouse had been together in the Gates of the Moon when Alayne walked in. And they both looked at each other, and they both drew their swords and immediately went to fighting each other, without a word being said.
My money would be on Brienne if it came to
Me
that,
too. Yes.
But the Lord's Declarant seems to be crumbling. We went from 6, looks like we're down to 3. Mya Waynwood took the money grab over her allegiance with Bronze Yawn. Littlefinger's paying off her debts and offered a huge dowry for Sansa to marry Harry the heir.
Yes, it's more like the Lord's Grumblant rather than Declarant.
Right, at this point, yeah.
We don't like it, but, okay, whatever. And I've got a mean comment about Robert Arryn that I'm not going to read out. In the spirit of the holiday season, I'm going to leave it alone.
I see it, yes. I do see it. The kid's just never had a chance around his mother,
He hasn't.
Jon Arryn tried to have him foster with Stannis. That definitely would have toughened him up on Dragonstone. And around Stannis.
Or with Tywin. You take your pick of those monsters.
Right. Although I have to say, Stannis seems to be pretty good with Shireen. He seems to be fairly... She seems happy,
And may it always stay that way.
Yes, that's right. I sure hope so.
All right, up next is Brienne. Hopefully, maybe she's just arriving at the Gates of the Moon too. That would be good.
Well, last we saw her, she was having her face eaten off by Biter. So,
oh yes, probably not. Yeah,
we'll have to see how that goes.
She's arriving at the pearly Gates of the Moon.
Maybe, might be closer to that. Yeah.
All right, there's 4 ways that you can help us. You could leave us a 5-star rating and a positive review. You could buy some merchandise at our holiday store, ghostsofharrenhal.threadless.com. Buy us a cup of Arbor Gold at buymeacoffee.com/ghostsharrenhal. There you can join us at any of the sustainer levels. There's a tier to match your interest and budget. The upper tiers get you the spoiler section. Or you can just make a donation directly to us at ghostsofharrenhal.buzzsprout.com.
And if you're looking for more ways to interact with us, well, first off, you can always just send us a text. The link is at the top of every episode show notes. And if you're wanting to keep up on the latest Ghosts of Harrenhal news and developments, well, go out and check us out on our social media. You can follow us on Twitter at Ghost Harrenhal. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. And if you're posting your Spotify rap there and tag us, we will put it on our story as well. And you can join us on Discord or YouTube.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.